Well, we're back with the final one of these, and it's the 1990s and beyond, when the game industry made a comeback. Atari was there with new games for the 2600, as well as powerful new Lynx and Jaguar consoles. Atari comes roaring back. The pair of deadly felines leads Atari's charge into a new decade as they introduce its first handheld platform and first CD-ROM system. Meanwhile, the Atari 2600 just keeps going and going and going. How much you got with this? Ooh, looking like a long one. Oh, it's on the end as well. Okay, only the last one seemed like a long one, and it wasn't really. But let's see how we go anyway. Back to the roots. Video games. Bill Reebok, former Atari VP. I remember sitting in the room with Jack, and Jack saying to all of us, let's go back to our roots. Let's do at least one more game system. And the Atari Lynx, I did have, I bought one of these second hand for about 40 quid. God knows what happened to it. Probably the screen would have gone anyway, but it looks huge compared to what the screen size is. It's like a Steam Deck in reverse. September '89, so probably early 90s when I got one. First portable game machine with a colour LCD display. Designed so that players could choose to flip it over, play with the buttons on the left and the D-pad on the right. $180. Yeah, I can imagine that originally. It is a cool little machine though. And now a little bit of a video about it.
There were so many things near the end of my early days with Atari that I wished, like everything we felt was underappreciated. Like I bought a Lynx and I was trying to find people to play the Lynx with me, and everyone else had a Game Boy, and I was like, you guys, Todd's Slime World, let's do this, let's play Warbirds, come on.
And the Lynx was totally Sam's baby. He loved the notion of the hardware, and Sam, man, he loved the Lynx into the ground, right? Against all odds, he wanted to make it successful. We did the original one that was sort of the original design, and then he was like, no, we got to double down on it and do it and make it better.
Being in the Bay Area, you see these ads, come test video games. So I think I tried out at a few places. Electronic Arts comes to mind. Didn't get the job there, but was lucky enough to kind of get the QA job at Atari. Back in the day, I think it was a lot more fun. People playing 4 Lynx games and then having them all go out of sync and then having to track that down. Like, probably at the 1,000th time that happens, it does get a little old. But I think back in the day, you actually got a lot more input into the games. So a lot of the last Lynx games like Lemmings and some of the early Jaguar games like Cybermorph, the QA department actually got a lot of input into those games from a design perspective. You know what? I think the Lynx was great hardware. I like the fact that it was color. And I think the fact that you could have this like 4-way local multiplayer was great.
20 some years later, here I am buying a Lynx with a RGB output because people are still modding them, and selling them on eBay and stuff, right?
With Brzezinski at the time, the Game Boy was all the rage, but the Lynx was a bigger, faster, and actually had better graphics. It still is a really little cool console. Yeah, certainly would have had better graphics. Oh, Windy Pops. Press, yeah, I saw both of those. Fold out poster. Games over Game Boy. I like that. Does look so cool, sort of, back in the day, but now you just think, it's not as good as it could be. Rampage, one of the few decent movie versions of a video game, even though there's no real plot to spoil. They just actually made a fun film. So I'd recommend that if you've not seen it. Did I miss one? I missed one! Ooh, look at all those. Paperboy. Paperboy's one of my favourites. APB is also great. Yeah, you can't beat a bit of Paperboy. I just wish I had the handlebars to be able to play it at home. Oh, yes, there's 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2. Ninja Golf. Blimey. Oh yeah. Try and get it the right way around. Does seem interesting. You won't mess with him on the golf course, would you? Basket Brawl. Certainly not heard of that one. Then, yeah, certainly. But I still had my 2600 by that point. I mean, by then I had my Spectrum and what else would I have here? The Atari ST. Depends when in the 1990 it was, because I went to uni in the autumn or fall. That's a bit of original artwork. Looks painful. Fatal Run. That sounds a bit unfortunate. One of the last games for the Atari 2600. Well, one of the last official ones. There's homebrew ones coming out all the time, even though I've not had time to play one in quite some time. The largest commercial game at 32K. A far cry from the 2K size of the official, the original, the launch titles. Wow. I would definitely check that out. And Fatal Run on the 7800. Only released in Europe, where it's more popular. Can we reverse Brexit, please? Let's help nobody. I've never even heard of Scrapyard Dog. 15 levels of danger and find the ultimate bad dude, Mr. Big. That's a bit of original artwork. For the links as well. Similar setup, but it's a completely different game. This version is generally considered to be the superior one, but since both are included, you can decide for yourself. Now, I redesigned links. I think this was probably the one I had. Yeah, because it's a cheaper version. Yeah, definitely was a smaller model that I had, so it would be that one. Remove the packing games. Oh, but the Amico gives you 6 packing games, if it ever came out. God. Anyone remember actually sending off again? Well, not just games, but sending off for anything. Allow 28 days for delivery. You'd never put up with that now. A budget package. Yeah, certainly good value at $100 plus the games, but yeah, you still get trounced by the Game Boy. Really pops. Can't stop window popping. Windy popping. There are other submarine games and another alien shooting games, but how many games give you both? Turbo Sub is another game making good use of the Link's sprite scaling capabilities to produce a first-person pseudo 3D environment. Come on. Pretty difficult to control. Oh, I get it, yes, it looks kind of cool. And Basket Brawl on the Lynx this time. Similar to the 7800 version, only now players can pick up weapons from the floor and use them on opponents. Lynx price drops again. God, they're just obviously trying to shift it so that people will actually buy it. $80, that'd be an absolute must. Just trying to prove what it can do ahead of the instead of the Game Boy. Yes, it's cheaper, but it can't do half the things that can do. And with a bigger screen. Push your mind to the edge. A young man entranced by the Dracula game for the Lynx does not seem to notice that he too has been given the vampire's kiss. What's the vampire's kiss? I've heard the phrase, but never actually. I'd have to look it up. Well, I've got a computer. I could actually look it up, couldn't I? Vampire kiss. Definition. Don't worry, a vampire's kiss isn't as scary as it sounds. This is a deep and passionate kiss on your partner's neck that involves a bit of gentle biting. Oh, a hickey then. Oh, except yeah, an actual vampire. Naughty, naughty. Enter the Jaguar, or Jaguar, as some Americans seem to call it. Why do they call it the Jaguar? It's Jaguar, not Jagwire. The Wire is in the TV show The Wire. World's first 64-bit gaming computer, in an attempt to leapfrog the 32-bit game machines that were beginning to be released. Its launch price was $250 in used cartridges rather than CD-ROMs. However, based on what I read on the or I saw on the video from Wrestling with Gaming about 5 years ago, it didn't have 64-bit at all. It had two 32-bit chips. I think one for graphics, one for sound. So it was still a 32-bit system. It just had two 32-bit chips. You don't add them together. It's still a 32-bit machine, but you know. Heyo. And now it's used as a dental machine since it flopped. Shame, really. Bloody awful controller, though. Absolutely awful. Who the hell came up with that? Must have been bloody drunk. It was advertised as a 64-bit system, yes, powered by two 32-bit processors named Tom and Jerry. So maybe not. I can't remember if it was graphics and sound, but yeah, still two 32-bit chips. It's not 64. Ah! What's he screaming for? Take your bloody hat off. You're indoors. You're not John Riggs or John Hancock. Psychomorph. Polygonal 3D shooter which the player can freely fly around 40 different planets. I should definitely check that one out as well. Cybermorph overlay. Oh, so they have the big controller so they can put these daft overlays on it. But it's not necessary to use it. So what's the point of it then? There you go. Trevor McFurry, The Crescent Galaxy, a horizontally scrolling 2D shooter starring an anthropomorphic leopard. Trevor McFurry, The Crescent Galaxy was the only other game available at store shelves for the November 23rd, 1993 launch date. And a McFur overlay as well. They seem kind of cool though. Again, not necessary to use it. Evolution Dino Dudes, known on other platforms as The Humans. A dull title. Evolution Dino Dudes is a platform puzzle game in which you have to lead a tribe of early humans through a series of puzzling levels. Malibu Bikini Volleyball, originally announced as Malibu Beach Ball. Well, just put bikini in there to draw the simps in. The sports game for the Lynx was eventually retitled to put the focus on the handful of pixels worth of attire sported by its competitors. Well, I'll have an objective viewpoint on that before too long. Also allow players to switch the musical soundtrack mid-game, unusual for the time. Magazine ad. The February '94 issues of gaming magazines took direct aim at the 16-bit consoles that dominated the industry at the time, so I can understand that. Just trying to take over from what's available. Checkered flag does look pretty cool for that sort of era. Looks like sort of hard driving that was in the arcade at the time. Lynx kicks their butts. If you're withdrawing support for it, why still go with it? There you go. Yeah, 3D graphics. Those were all the rage at the time, although it was really the PlayStation, the first PlayStation, that took over with those. I certainly didn't know anyone who had a Jaguar at the time. PlayStation had had a CD-ROM drive, and you could just well, there were some people who were modding PlayStations and selling the games. A little bit sort of cut price, shall we say. Of course, I never bought any, of course. I'm a good boy. Tempest, always a good game, but bloody hard. Tempest on the Jaguar. Not sure if I've played that one, so yeah, I will look forward to that. You, them, you, them. Is this a pronouns thing? Probably not. Club Drive. Sounds a bit sort of similar to hard driving. Yeah, actually looks a bit similar as well. So I'll certainly check that out. But that where it's got Club Drive written in stone, that is not good. I wouldn't do that. Wow, early '95 they dropped the price from $250 to $160. Blimey. Why did I not buy one? Oh, I had my PlayStation, I suppose. But yeah, that, and then you play playing however much separately for the games. They got a CD-ROM drive separately for 150 quid. Oh, $150. Yeah, so basically doubling the price of what you're paying for. So I mean, it looks nice, and imagine it worked nice, but when the PlayStation itself later in '95, was how much was that? About 150 quid, 180 quid, or something. Yeah, it was a no-brainer. 790 meg tune-up. Oh yeah, that's exactly what you get from the CD in terms of memory capacity. But I found that the system had been significantly delayed, even though the ad implied it was already available. Get a Jaguar CD now. Oh, maybe not. Now, God damn it, now! No. Probably not available. Super Avid Asteroids and Missile Command. Oh, final game for the Lynx. Oh, 2-on-1 though. Can't complain about that. Nice little poster though. Thank you, Terry Hoff. Spot the elephant. Let's reduce the price of the Jaguar down by $10. So it's dealing with trying to compete with the Sega Saturn and the PlayStation. But okay, spot the elephant in this picture. If so, you're probably smart enough to figure out that paying $150 for a 64-bit Jaguar makes more sense than paying over $300 for the 32-bit system. Well, yeah, but then the Jaguar was 32-bit as well, of course. Yeah, the PlayStation was $300 originally, or about 300 quid in the UK. But yeah, I think I got it when it was about 150, 180 quid. So it must have been out for a year or two. Oop, hang on. Hush now. Trying to zoom in. There we go. So we've got Defender 2000, Rayman, Flip Out, Ultra Vortec, Pitfall and Mind Adventure. I've never played that. Of course it won't be on here because it's an Activision game. I mean they do Pitfall. White Men Can't Jump. Bloody awful movie. Can you connect the dots? Oh, that controller. Now Pro controller. 3 more face buttons and 2 shoulder buttons. Still not convinced. Ruin of Pinball, one of the final Jaguar titles, as well as the first use extra buttons offered by the new controller. So the additional shoulder buttons could be used to nudge the table. Let's go to the mall. Atari had one more trick up its sleeve for $9.95 Christmas. Partner with a retailer called Run PC to open a Jaguar kiosk in the Twin Peaks Mall. I was going to say Twin Pines Mall in Longmont, Colorado that November. So consumers will get hands-on with the system and learn about it from educated salespeople. Well, you certainly wouldn't get that in Curry's or Dixon's, I tell you. They know nothing about nothing. If they knew nothing, that would be... Yeah, they know nothing about nothing. If they knew nothing, that would be something. I mean, that's... I wonder what it is they're selling there. What do you think it is? Missile Command 3D. Atari and Virtuality had partnered to create a VR headset for Jaguar, which Missile Command 3D actually supported through its virtual gameplay mode. Wow. I wonder how much that... Oh, I bet we'll find out in a minute. Hang on. I was going to say, I wonder how much it cost. It's, they only published a Jaguar game that supported the VR headset, which was never released. Would be cool to play though. I've been in one of the Virtuality machines that were made in 1991 when I went to a retro gaming expo around 2013, 2014. Good fun, but yeah, quite expensive to maintain, I imagine. And expensive to get going as well. What's that? Atari Karts. I've never played Mario Kart, but I've recently played. You'll see the gameplay on this channel. Smurfs Kart. That was quite a fun game. Bentley Bear. Fight for Life. The final game for the Jaguar. Polygonal martial arts game. worked on of course, it worked on Virtua Fighter. So yeah, if it's a yeah, it looks like a sort of early Virtua Fighter kind of game. But Virtua Fighter was so cool. Yes, this is why I expect this is where they say 32 plus 32 does not equal 64.
I remember sitting in the room with Jack, and Jack saying to all of us, let's go back to our roots. Let's do at least one more game system.
The controller is quirky. The industrial design of both the CD and the main unit are quirky. And the fact that, like, I guess somebody used the tooling on the main unit to make some kind of dental device. Like, it just has like this weird quirky history that I think is also inviting.
One of the most interesting things about the architecture of Jaguar was this notion of having the Motorola 68000, which basically was responsible for booting and housekeeping, and then the Tom and Jerry chips.
I mean, I think at the time, 68000 was still a strong processor, but obviously it was in the Genesis and other things, so you weren't really getting that true 64-bit experience. But I think there's games out there that took advantage.
There's so many features in Jaguar that for a developer like Jeff Minter that did Tempest 2000 for Jaguar was like, wow, give me this.
I would say other than Cybermorph, it did not necessarily feel like that quantum leap that we were promised. It wasn't the flying cars, as they say, that we would have in the future, but you could see the potential, and that's what was really cool. You could see the parts of Cybermorph. You're like, oh, fully 3D world compared to something like maybe a Star Fox, which was on rails.
My perspective is the rule of thirds, where if you want to wind up with one really, really great game, you need to lay down 9 bets, because out of those 9, 1/3 probably will ship. And out of those 3 games, one is going to be a hit, the other will be and the other probably might be a dinger. Yeah. You know, there just wasn't enough momentum behind the Jaguar at that time to be able to do that, when Sega and Nintendo were basically already on their 3.5 generation of consoles, you know, at those times.
I mean, if Aliens vs. Predator came out as a launch title, maybe the history of the Atari Jaguar might have been slightly different. I think there are a lot more Jaguar fans today than there were when the system actually came out, and it's cool to see people enjoying the system some 20-odd years later. I believe everybody appreciated the innovative aspect, but on the other hand, the software was late, some of it was a little janky, but I think just saying, you know, time heals all wounds, to go onto the Jaguar forums now and look at the love for the system, honestly, like somebody that worked on it, I can't say that I completely understand it, but I totally appreciate it. I'm like, where were you guys like 20 or 30 years ago? You know, like, you would have made my life like a heck of a lot better.
Then again, maybe people bought it later on when we grew up and we actually had disposable income. I mean, in 94, 95, I'd be in my early 20s. So, yeah, I wouldn't have as much money to spend on a games console. But, yeah, add on another 20 years and I'd certainly have the money for it. But then they wouldn't be making the console, you know, in so many numbers, i.e. they wouldn't be making it at all by now. They didn't mention the 32 and 32 not equaling 64, but anyway. It finally comes into, finally ends up, finally stops, 125,000 sold, they still had 100,000 unsold in inventory. Yeah, they sold its, they just sold off all the units, that's a shame. Be good to get one of those for a song. Farron Thomason, former Atari game producer, it just has this weird, quirky history that I think is also inviting, but in general, I'm pretty surprised at the enthusiasm of current Atari Jaguar fans. And if you call Jaguar Jaguar, tell me why. Oh, Atari VCS, most recently on sale for $100 in America. I'd have certainly bought one then, not bloody $400, but Yeah, you'd have to import it and pay import charges into the UK, so it's not a chance. It's like a low-powered PC, basically. Not worth it for the money. Missile command recharge. Oh, what about missile command for the Amico? Oh, yeah, 2600 homebrew, and there's still lots coming for that. Oh, nearly at the end. There's been some fantastic 2600 games. I think what was a turbo game I played on my channel a year or two ago, and that was made for the Atari 2600. That was a phenomenal game. It's on my channel. Try and find out what the game is called.
I feel the best Atari games ever made have been made in the last 5 years. Like, I think the homebrew scene is incredible. People have figured out, and it's unfair to compare because the original people had like 5 weeks to make, ET or whatever. And now people can take, it's like a hobby. You can take as long as you want. And you have access to like special chips and stuff. But still, they're still working. Eventually, making carts that you plug into your original Atari 2600 and they run, and they're super fun.
We saw it evolving, and there was a lot of nostalgia involved for that to happen. We loved this particular game system, and it's a great intellectual challenge.
In 2009, I was given a talk in Philadelphia just talking about the game business and my experience there. And after the talk, somebody came up to me and they said, "Hey, I just saw this cool book just came out called Racing the Beam. And it's about programming the 2600. And since you mentioned that you worked on the 800, I thought you might be interested in this book." And I'm like, it does sound really interesting.
Back in the old days when I had my Atari 800, I did learn 6502 assembly language, and so I've been messing around and making some of my own Atari games. I'm not ready to make Psychonauts on the Atari yet, but someday I'm going to make Psychonauts on the Atari 2600. Not announcing that yet, but don't tell anyone. But
What is the point of going back to work on one of these old machines anyway? I mean, to me, the point is I wanna know what it was like to be, Todd Fryer, and who was, told he has 3 months to write Pac-Man on this terrible machine. And am I a man enough, programmer to be able to do that?
Pac-Man was actually technically quite solid.
it's fun to program for the 2600 because it's unique. It's 128 bytes, not K, but like bytes of memory. It's so limited that it helps you edit, and so you can't do everything. You can't imagine an experience and then implement it on the Atari. You have to go the other way around. Like, how many blocks can I move on the screen? Like, how can I turn that into a fun game?
It was very, very hard to squeeze a 128 level game with a title screen and a boss encounter and all that into 4K of ROM, because that's one of the limitations on the 2600 if you're going to live within the original constraints. And so I learned a ton about the 2600 along the way. I had a lot of fun. It was a lot of hard work, and I'm proud of the way it turned out.
I think of the homebrew as the hobbyist who wants to see if he can do it, and he makes a game and he makes a few for friends. That has evolved into some actual publishers making Atari 2600 games that are out there.
But there was a guy came on there the other day, and he's like, I just want to say this is the most supportive technical community I have ever been part of. So it is an amazing community and very welcoming to new people. So I would encourage people to do that.
So I looked it up, Turbo Arcade. I probably forget, but if you look up Turbo Arcade demo gameplay, especially on my channel, DVDfeverGames, you'll see the gameplay there. It does look phenomenal. And that was, I think the demo was from 2021, so it came out this year. I presume it's come out this year. I'll be honest, I haven't checked on the Atari Age website for quite some time. But it does have a good forum on there. The stacks. 2012, they worked with Ready Player One author Ernest Cline to produce the stacks, an original 2600 game based on the one created by the novel's protagonist. Why is it not included in this game, in this collection then? No! No fair. Tease! You tease! Atari's legacy inspiring Ready Player One. They discuss how the legacy of Atari inspired Ready Player One and how the novel itself became an Atari 2600 game. Well, at least I presume we'll get some gameplay in this then.
There was no console war in the beginning. There was, in the beginning there was only Atari, and the children looked upon it and saw that it was good and bought Atari and then asked for Atari games for every Christmas and birthday. The Easter eggs, finding the Easter eggs in Howard's game and Warren's game, those were huge moments for me in my childhood and my favorite early gaming experiences, especially finding that room in Adventure. That path that everybody, whoever found the Easter egg, follows those clues and then discovers this, this secret room, this message hidden by the creator of the game, who I didn't even know who he was. And here's his name, and a whole secret room, that most kids who play this game never found. I found this secret place left by the creator, with a message for me. It was profound, and the first time that it ever happened in a video game. And so years later, when I was, I think had the initial idea for Ready Player One, was what if Willy Wonka had been a video game designer, and what if he held his golden ticket contest inside a video game? And that immediately made me think of the secret room at Adventure and how that could be, how he finds his worthy successor, instead of a tour through the factory where he slowly kills off all the children. It could be an Easter egg hunt inside this, sprawling video game, and it could be hidden the way that those Easter eggs were hidden in the Atari games. And so there's no way I ever would have written Ready Player One if I hadn't grown up with an Atari and playing those games and finding those Easter eggs.
As I was reading through it, there was just so much familiarity in there. It felt like, as I was reading it, that the person who had written it, that I grew up with them. Because some of the names that were in there, some of the locations, some of the references were things that I thought only I knew. And nobody else in the world would understand or appreciate any of it. My literal opening, my email to him, before anything blew up on Ready Player One, my literal opening was just like, we have to know each other because there's things in this book that only I know. Where did we meet before? That was the beginning of our full communication, which led to the stacks.
He read Ready Player One and it spoke to him, and he sent me an email that said, hey, I make video games for a living and your book really spoke to me, and if you ever want to make a video game, let me know. And I was right in the middle of trying to figure out if I could somehow do a promotional contest for the paperback that mirrored the contest in the novel. I wanted to do some sort of contest with 3 video game challenges and a grand prize at the end of it. And because Mike made that offer, I took him up on it. I'm like, oh, well, we could make an Atari game that you have to beat as the first challenge, and it could be the game that Wade makes in the novel.
Part of what made the book feel like it was written for me is because of the context around the 2600 rite of passage in there. Because for programmers in the game industry, 2600 is this really difficult platform to develop games for. To get anything to even appear on screen, to get anything to even work correctly, you have to just break your brain and rid it of everything that you understand about how games are developed today and go back to this kind of primitive, primordial way of coding. And so for a lot of programmers, it is a rite of passage. If you can do that, you can do anything.
Wade makes his own game, and it's the Stacks. It's based on his life in the Stacks, and he describes it as a Pitfall ripoff that has you climbing around the stacked trailers, looking for food voucher power-ups and trying to avoid pedophiles. And it's like a 1-paragraph description of this game. But I sent it to Mike, and he's like, "Oh, hell yeah!"
And so I had dabbled over the years with trying to understand 2600 programming. I'd made a couple small games, a couple of hacks. So when this kind of came around, it was the perfect excuse to just finally deliver something that was all original and build something from the ground up. Once it started to work, it was completely satisfying. I felt like I had mastered what the greatest engineers in the world have mastered before me, and that I finally had an understanding of it. And to get there, of course, I had to enlist some help. And so that help came in the form of Kevin Wilson, our CTO at Digital Eclipse. I didn't mention this before, but we only had a few weeks to pull this off. So we were not only trying to learn 2600, but we're also given the time frame that basically ET had to try to get this game out the door. So we were reliving the worst of Atari's development history all over again, and I savored every second of it.
In our original contest version, all the items are hidden in the same place, which is great because we had people making maps. For like the first time since they were kids, they were making maps of the stacks to remember, so if they died, they could go back and find where the items were. But then they added randomization, and now it might be one of the best Atari games ever made. Not to brag, but the stacks is pretty deep and pretty replayable for an Atari game. That's why I think Atari is always going to hold a special place in the hearts of people like me, just because it was, it was the first, and it was, so needed. We were so bored in the late 70s. We needed video games at home so badly. The fact that other better consoles came later is because they saw the giant cultural and economic behemoth that Atari immediately became. Atari created the video game industry, the home video game industry, and everybody that's come since then is, kind of building on what Atari created.
What is it with men and goatees? Goatees don't suit any man, honestly. And last but not least, Atari at 50. We've gone from 2020, 2022, getting up to date. Jumped forward a fair bit, 1998, 2020, 2022. Anyway, Atari co-founder Nolan Bushnell reflects on the history of the company in conversation with current Atari CEO Wade Rosen.
When we started, video games were almost considered to be a bastardization of this wonderful technology. Why are you using it for fun when you could be creating missiles? I think we stood for innovation, and also we were the genesis story of the video game, which is kind of important. So I think you always have a hallowed position when you're the first.
Yeah.
When we chose the Fuji logo, I wanted it to be an upward swoosh. And I think that if you look at the Atari logo, it's a collective, it's aspirational, just in the nature of the graphic. Also, Atari, I lifted it from the Game & Go. Mm-hmm. So it's a game word. But I hadn't realized that it also means bullseye.
Right.
It also means jackpot. So, it's got this affirmative. In fact, I was talking to a Japanese guy one time, and he says, very good name, Atari. Perhaps a bit boastful for Japanese.
You're like, spot on for Americans.
Spot on for Americans.
Yeah.
One of the ethos of Atari was work hard, play hard. So we always had games, not just Atari games, but foosball and pool tables in the snack rooms and what have you. What that said was, we don't care when you come to work. If you come to work, get your job done, we're okay. We're all adults here. And we don't care how you come to work. You want to wear tennis shorts and blue jeans? Do you want to wear a tuxedo? We don't care. We had one guy that liked to wear ball gowns, but that's another story. I could tell some stories, though, about how I used to mess with the people who copied me.
Oh, please. Oh, I'd love to hear that.
Okay. Atari started by building games that you could do in a garage shop. Mm-hmm. So anybody that had a garage shop could copy us. And so of the 150,000 estimated Pong-type games that were created, Atari only shipped 30,000 of them. So we got less than a fifth of our market.
Right.
And so as we innovated, people would start copying us. And I thought, I'm going to get them. So I had our semiconductor suppliers. We were kind of a big deal in the semiconductor industry because they were selling a lot to the military and that sort of thing, but they'd sell 20 or 100 chips. We were buying thousands.
Right.
And so I had them mismark the chips. So that we had
That you guys were using.
that we were using.
So if somebody tried to reverse engineer it.
So
wow.
if they reversed engineer it and just bought off the shelf those same numbers, they'd populate the board and they wouldn't work.
Did you ever hear of anybody doing that?
Oh yeah. We in
That's
fact
brilliant.
we
great.
had one company that basically declared bankruptcy because they had a whole floor full of machines that they worked because they were hurrying to do it.
Oh man.
And we had the temerity to have a champagne party on their front lawn. We celebrated their demise and invited them, of course.
Did they show up?
No.
What do you think Atari's role is, not just in video games, but in popular culture today?
Well, I think that Atari has an unassailable role as being the Genesis story. I believe that it is understood by a lot that it succeeded because of creativity. 30 of those years, it was kind of in hands that were not kind to it. Don't say anything bad. So I think that pieces of the brand were damaged. Not irrevocably, but it could have been husbanded better. And so right now, I think that it would be good to take the innovation legacy and push it forward into the future.
Hey! I get Race 500. I thought it was called Indie Race 500. Anyway, that's how you get the 5th game. Game over? Excuse me. 50 years later, Atari fans won't let its story come to an end. Not only does their passion for the classic games continue, but they're constantly creating new games and experiences for the classic Atari hardware. Here's to the next 50 years, absolutely. And, well, I'll be 100. I'm as old as Atari. That's as old as I am. Yeah. So if Atari makes it to 100, I hope I do too. I can't click on that. So it's back. So we've got 100. And so, yes, the game was Race 500. Where are we? Where is it? Come on, Race 500. Okay. I know I will have played it before, but oh blimey. Point to the direction you want to drive. Yeah. Now it's a 2-player game and I'm playing with myself. Oh man. What the hell's going on there? Oh, in the way I want to go. I'm trying to rotate the joystick. Okay, I get it now. Oh well. I sort of get the idea, but my god, the controls are bobbins. One, Not exactly Hot Wheels, the most recent game, is it? That's quite a fun game, actually. Whee! Do a 5th lap, and then that'll be that. Can even finish 5 laps. Yeah, that's enough of that. So there we go. Oh, I've reset it. I meant to go back to the main menu. But have a look at the instruction manual. It's look pretty cool. For once, the mock-up of the track actually does look like the game. But 25 laps first to be the winner. It wouldn't have taken long for me to get to 25 laps, but I couldn't be bothered. I've zoomed too much in. No, that's fine. Ice tracks. Seem to remember those being very slippery. So very cool indeed. Yeah, bit of an iffy game, but there we go. So there we go. There's our 5 timelines and all 5 games unlocked. So I'll at the time when you watch this, either some of these separate timelines will be up in separate videos, and some will still to go online, but they will all go online. But yeah, that's how to get all 5 games, all 5 secret confidential games. I know I'm not the first to do that, obviously, and kudos to Captain Classic for his video where he shows how to do it. But yeah, some of those were difficult to get, some of those were easy. But anyway, this one was just time consuming. Anyway, let me know all your thoughts in the comments below. In the meantime, please like this video, share it with your friends, subscribe if you haven't already, click on the bell for all the notifications. And as we've heard during a couple of the most recent videos in this 5th timeline of 1990s and beyond, when they talked about Genesis, cue Genesis.